Hello and welcome to the Bedroom Studios podcast where we talk about what goes on behind the scenes in a musician's world and bridge the industry gap by bringing their stories, expertise, and advice to early career artists. Subscribe to join us for a fun chat about life as a creative person, tips and tricks for pursuing an artistic career, navigating the music industry, and more. I am your host, Emma, and today I will be interviewing Duncan Hall.
Good morning.
Yay! Duncan is a Canadian composer of concert music, film music, and works for a variety of ensembles, originally from Calgary and now operating out of Toronto. Duncan's background is heavily influenced by the marching arts and wind ensemble repertoire. He has played in ensembles such as the Calgary Stampede Showband, the Alberta Honour Band, the Blue Knights Drum and Bugle Corps, and the Toronto Chamber Symphony, to name a few. Outside of an amazing academic setting, Duncan spends most of his time preparing and rehearsing for Drum Corps International, the major league of the marching arts.
I think that's all true. That sounds like me.
Yeah. Did I pronounce corps right?
Yeah, corps.
I'm proud of myself.
I do actually need to update that because this year I'm marching with the Cavaliers, so add another one to the list. Yeah.
That's really awesome. So we're definitely going to talk a lot about that.
Yes, let's go.
It's funny because we go to school together, but I wouldn't know that you do marching band over the summer if I didn't know you well.
I mean, it doesn't exist in Canada, so most people assume that people they go to school with don't do marching band, but
that's true.
Yeah, I think in the corps that I'm in right now, I am one of 2 Canadians there. Wow. So it's like even the number of Canadians who are in the activity, like from all of Canada, is really, really small. But
so is it something where in the United States, it's like everyone would be doing it?
Everyone and their mother's dog does marching band. Like every high school has a marching band. Every football game, you have halftime show. You have a pep band at the very least. You have cheerleading.
Wow.
Like everyone does marching band. And then drum corps is the major league. So once you've done your high school band and you're like, I'm getting kind of good at this, then you go off to drum corps.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool because I know like sports is in high school and university sports is so big in the U.S. Not so much here.
Yeah. It's really big in the States.
Yeah, amazing.
I'm not from the States for clarification. I've spent my entire life in Canada. The only reference that I have for any of this is the time that I've spent doing drum corps in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah.
So the first question that I like to ask everyone, just to give a frame of reference before we go into more detail about stuff, is what your musical journey has been like, and sort of what sort of things led you to be doing what you are doing today.
Okay.
So kind of a loaded question to ask at the very beginning.
Well, no, I think it's a good place to start.
Tell me your life story.
Right at the beginning and then end off, present day and then keep going.
Complete with a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. Sorry, I brought my slides with me. I'll just put them on real quick. My musical journey so far is a short one, I think, compared to probably most of the other people that you'll interview or even find at the school. I started band in grade 7 because I saw my brother doing it. I was like, that's really cool. I want to do that. And that is really where I started seriously doing music. I didn't do any RCM, any piano lessons. I took guitar lessons a little while, but I probably annoyed my teacher more than anything because I never practiced. I was so bad for that. But I started on the flute in grade 7. I did jazz band in grade 8. Is
that also on flute?
No, that was on alto saxophone and bass guitar.
Ooh.
There was my friend who was also a flautist, also played saxophone, but she was better at bass, so she would take most of the songs on bass, and then we would swap out sometimes. That was my introduction to jazz. I haven't stopped listening to it since. I love jazz so much.
Have you seen Snarky Puppy?
But, oh my god, Snarky, so good.
Are you seeing them come? They're coming.
They're coming to.
Yeah.
When?
At the end of June.
So I'm definitely not gonna be here. I'm
you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's always funny. People are like, "Oh, are you gonna just catch this thing in the summer?" I'm like, "Nope, I can't, unfortunately."
I will not be here.
But yeah.
Continue.
Yes. Grade 7 started band. Grade 8 did jazz band. Grade 9 I started marching band. And it sort of just like snowballed from there. Grade 11 or was it grade 10? I think it was grade 10 when I started writing music, because my band teacher was like, I think you might be good at this. You might like this. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I tried it. I was like, yeah, I kind of like this. This is kind of cool. And he was like, you should try writing music for movies. I think you'd like it. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, right. He's very, very encouraging. In grade 11, I like really tied the knot and decided that instead of engineering, which, you know, for my entire life and up until that point, I desperately wanted to do, I would go into music composition. So I guess like staying on the academic side of things, that's what I went to school for. I did a year of school out at Mount Allison University, New Brunswick. Go Mounties. And then I transferred here to specialize in composition, here being University of Toronto. This is my third year here. I just finished. Let's go. Only one more year to go. And I'm hoping to graduate and then go off and score films. Like try and go straight into industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So academics wise, that's been my journey so far. I guess more on the performance side of things, it really, you got to focus on the marching band aspect. So the high school band is what prepared me for marching band in that sense. So I did 2 years on flute before I joined marching band in grade 9. I did a year on flute in the Calgary Honour Band, and then I did 2 years of Stetsons, the first year on piccolo, second year on mellophone, because in 2016...
Big change.
Yeah, it's a big change. I'd never played brass until that point. I'd only done woodwinds, like saxophone and flute and bass, and maybe like a smattering of drums here and there. But yeah, I decided to try and learn brass because I wanted to march drum corps, because in 2016 we saw them live and I was like, oh my god, this is insane. I've never heard anything this loud, this cool. And
so are there no woodwinds in drum corps?
Not in drum corps. So in high school marching bands you'll find them, in Bands of America you'll find them, but in drum corps it is solely brass and percussion. Yeah.
So your high school that you went to, they had a marching band even though it was Canadian?
Oh, no, not at all.
So that was something you went to the States to do?
Not either, actually.
No?
No. What it was is marching band culture, at least one that, you know, people might be relatively familiar with, really only exists in Calgary, Alberta. Now, granted, to all your viewers out there from Montreal or from Quebec or from other places in Ontario, there are drum lines, there are color guards that exist outside of Calgary. But Calgary is where the marching band scene really is in Canada. So there are community bands there that, at least the first two feeder bands, so like the 789, the baby band we like to call it, Calgary Honour Band, and the Stetson Showband, as long as you pay money and you show up, you can march. The Calgary Stampede Showband is auditioned. So that's like the big leagues of the marching bands. But they put on parades. They'll do like stand-still performances where they arc up at some breakfast somewhere and they'll just play some parade tunes. They do a field show, which is competitive, and then they do a lot of performances during Stampede as well. But that is all, it's all centered around the community. So it's not linked to like sports or other like external mediums. It's solely marching on for marching on's sake, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you're from Calgary.
Yeah, right? Otherwise, you know, I never would have discovered that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the summer, you're going to be in the US, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when did you start doing that?
So I made the move from the community marching bands to drum corps when I went to university. And that was sort of like a motivation for not staying in Calgary for university. Was like going elsewhere to be closer to drum corps. But yeah, so I decided to move away in 2019, 2020, and I auditioned around places. I didn't get in anywhere. But after COVID hit, my friend sent a message to a meme group chat from my showband days and said, hey, Blue Knights are still looking for spots. if anyone's interested, they have one mellophone spot. And I'm like, oh my god, I gotta audition right now.
So was this before you started learning mellophone, or
no?
After?
This was after. So I'd marched mellophone
wow,
for 2 years.
what are the odds?
Yeah, right. This is my only chance at marching drum corps, because before then I did the Stampede Showband, but I moved away, so that's not an opportunity anymore. I'm now nowhere near marching band culture, so my only options are drum corps, and the places where I auditioned, I all got cut. So it was looking like, the remaining 4 years of my marching career, I wasn't going to march anywhere. But then Wes messaged me and was like, hey, audition for Blue Knights. So I did. And in about 2 weeks, I went from not marching anywhere to having a contract and needing to move in about a month.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a really quick turnaround. But yeah, that's when it all started. So right after COVID hit.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so the drum corps, it's still the kind of thing where you have to pay to do it?
Yes.
So it's not like a full-time job?
No, it's not a job at all. If it is, I would have a lot more trouble at borders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Needing to get a work visa and all.
And is the contract just for summer, or are you set for however long you want to do it?
It's just so each corps is a little bit different. Every single corps, however, they only contract members on a season-by-season basis. So one marching season, one contract. Most corps, except for two that I can think of, they always contract veteran members. So if you've marched there before, you have a spot for the next season. There are some corps that don't do that, and their audition processes are highly stressful, because you could have marched, you could be a 4-year super vet at one of these corps and get cut in your age out year. And that's a possibility that you might have to contend with. But yeah, I'm thankful I'm not marching at one of those corps.
You were saying before that you started playing mellophone, you were just interested in it, right? Was it, because that's, I don't know, I feel like that's a really obscure instrument.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
So I didn't even know that it existed, honestly, until recently.
It really doesn't. It's not a real instrument. It doesn't have any existing uses outside of marching band.
I love that. That's amazing.
We made it up in 2000, and it exists solely for that purpose.
Does it have something to do with it just being a bit smaller and easy to carry?
So what it is, quick history of the mellophone. So back in the ye old days of drum corps, drum corps the full name is Drum and Bugle Corps, because everyone marched bugles. Once the corps started getting a little bit bigger, I'd say the 50s, I want to say, because all the corps were created, most of the corps were created as ways to get orphaned children from the war off of the streets and to give them something to do, kind of like El Sistema in Venezuela. But they all, they marched on bugles, and bugles are soprano instruments. But as corps got bigger, they were like, oh, we can add more instruments to this. So let's, get a whole choir of bugles. So you get soprano bugles, you get alto bugles, baritone bugles, and contrabass bugles. And then as the years went on and things got more complex and more, the demand was, people were like, oh, we can do more with this. They started adding valves to them. So we got the 1-valve bugle, we got the 2-valve bugle, we got G bugles. And for the longest time, 20 or 30 years, everyone marched G bugles, which were 2-valve horns, and they were soprano, alto, baritone, and contrabass bugles. And then someone came along at around the turn of the millennium and said, why don't we just use 3-valve horns? Because the rest of the world uses 3-valve horns. They're a lot more versatile. You can do a lot more things. You can play an A flat, which you can't do on a 2-valve bugle. And so we introduced the trumpet, the concert trumpet, which is pitched in B flat instead of G, into the marching bands. We used euphoniums and baritones, which are also pitched in B flat. And we used marching tubas, which were convertible. So instead of doing this, you had to put it over your shoulder, which is a whole other thing. But they're pitched in B flat. So now you have a B flat horn line, and you need an alto instrument because the alto horn existed in G, and it like the G bugle, the G alto bugle was a thing, but you didn't have an alto horn in a concert setting that you could take over to a marching setting, because French horns, they face away, so the bell is facing the wrong way, so you can't use that. You could try using like brass band style alto horns, but their bell is pointing up, so you'd have to rearrange the instrument. So instead, Con Selmer decided to create this thing called the mellophone, which also had origins in jazz, but that's a whole other story. But so basically what it is they took the alto bugle and they made it in the key of the French horn, so it's in F, and they gave it 3 valves, and they gave it a trumpet bore. So it has the same bore as the trumpet, it's pitched in F, it has a bigger bell than a trumpet, but not as big as a baritone, but it doesn't exist outside of the marching band setting. So it's literally a fake instrument. It doesn't exist outside of marching band. We made it, yeah.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
It's like, it's interesting how it's, I guess, standard
Yeah.
in marching band, whereas you said it was invented in 2000.
2000. It's only been around for like 23 years, but it is a staple. Every single marching band has one.
Yeah.
In fact, it's almost like iconic of marching band, because the one thing that anyone who goes to any marching band will tell you is that mellophones have the coolest parts. Just like the runs and everything. It's like playing flute but brass.
And it's funny because I guess the registers are different, but yeah. Is there a reason why they give the really fast lines to the mellophone versus a higher instrument?
Okay, so yes, and this goes back to it being a fake instrument. We invented it 23 years ago. The trumpet was invented like 200 years ago, so it has that much time to be a good instrument. Like, we have time to refine it. The mellophone did not. And so in the early days, it was completely out of tune. Like, it was so out of tune. And what do you do to out of tune instruments? You give them fast passages. Because you're playing a lot of notes, right? No one cares about your tuning. You just go, you don't care about tuning, you're just playing notes. So literally, that's the entire reason why mellophones were given fast, complex lines, because no one could play in tune.
What does that say about flute players?
No comment. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it had that much of a rich history, even though it's only 23 years old.
I know, right? I mean, same could be said about like so many other things. There's so much rich history around us. We just,
Yeah, even like with the uniforms and the way that you were talking about the haircut.
Yeah. As I normally wear, for the viewers at home, without visual aids, I normally have longer hair and I wear a beard, a fairly thick beard. It's not like Viking beard, but it's not exactly scruff either. And I walked into the studio today to meet Emma for this interview, and she was like, "Oh my God, Duncan, you look really, really different," because I have to have my hair like buzz cut, clean shaven face for the uniform. As it's like there's a whole tradition of it, but yeah. It's a very jarring look. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, ugh, don't like that.
I guess it's worth it when you're doing it.
No, absolutely. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah. So to pivot really quick, I want to, just because I don't want to run out of time.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we burned through that. Oh my God.
I know, right? There's a lot to talk about with marching band.
Yeah, right.
I want to talk about your more about your compositions, and you do a lot of film composition.
I do. Hopefully.
Yeah. So first off, I guess would you like to share with the viewers how you came up with He Shoots, He Scores, and what that is?
Okay. So that is basically my professional alias. That's sort of like the studio, that the identity that I can have online, where I can like put all of my works and all my things. I needed a name for it, and I didn't want to just be like, oh, esoteric, it's gonna be a Pine Tree Studios. I was like, no. So I decided to come up with, you know, a little bit tongue-in-cheek play on words. I am Canadian, in case you couldn't tell. So I, you know, took a bit of Canadian and I was like, okay, hockey, Canada, that's gonna read worldwide, right? He shoots, he scores is very, very common, you know, hockey terminology, it's slang, people say it, associate it, but it's a double entendre because he shoots films, he scores them too. Like he scores films, he shoots films, so he shoots, he scores. So that's yeah. But in recent years, it's been a bit of a mouthful to say, and it's a lot to put in an Instagram handle. So sometimes I'm shortening it to just Studio H, which I guess is shoehorn me back to Pine Tree Studios. Yeah, that is HSHS Studios.
It took me a while at first to figure out the pun.
Oh, the pun, yes.
And but once I did, I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
It takes people a minute or two, but once they see it, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we are both in the same course at U of T, where the film composition course, we collaborate with animators from Sheridan. And you take on a lot of films, as I remember, correct? How many have you done?
Oh my god. Okay, so this year, I had a lighter workload, actually. I only did 5.
That's still a lot.
For reference, most people do 1, maybe 2. I did 5.
How many did you do last year?
Last year I did like 6, maybe 7.
Okay.
But like so we go in person to Sheridan College, right?
Yeah.
And we talk with the animators there, and we have like an industry day, and you try to say, hey, I'll score your film, and you try to... I have a game of like trying to rack up as many animators as I can, and I said I would work with about 10 people, and I ended up working with about 5. So that's losses of like 50%-ish. So, you know, that's workable.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of times it's difficult for people to pair up one collaboration, let alone 5. So
yeah,
that's something to be said about.
I'm very, very, very grateful to the animators for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because that's a lot of stuff to do. That's a heavy workload.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering sort of like how do you approach working on so many films when they all have a similar deadline? And how do you do you have a process that you go by that helps you to get it all done?
Sure. I think my approach is very holistic in that sense. So I will send out a mass email once I have said. So first I have my list of all the animators that I talk to. I grab all of their emails. I send out a mass email saying, hi, I'd like to work with you. Here are the dates that I'm available for work, which are usually shorter because of drum corps. But please reply if you would like to work with me. And then whoever replies first, I'll work on their projects first. And it usually shuffles out okay because the revision, like, they send me stuff, I send them stuff back. They're like, no, this is trash, please do it all again in a different style and add kazoo on the left side. And like, we'll go back and forth and send revisions. So those revisions tend to like dovetail nicely with everyone else's. So I rarely need to work on 2 or more projects at the same time to be done, like to have a revision done by the end of the week. It'll be like, I'll work on a project, then a few days later, I'll get comments back on a different thing, so I send that back, and then a few days later, I'll get comments back on a different project, and it'll just sort of like trade off. And I'll just keep doing that until the projects eventually run out. There we go.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that you're kind of staying on top of it, and you're the one instigating all of the communication, everything. So a lot of times it's difficult when you're waiting on people to contact you.
Yeah. That is like one of the hardest things, because like you send out a giant email to like 10 people and you never hear back from 3 of them. And you just gotta yeah. And
you ever find that you like get burnt out or anything, or do you find that your strategy works?
That's a really, really interesting question. And I would love to give you an honest answer that is, actually, do I feel burnt out from doing the work? Unfortunately, I am trying to do all of this off of a computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM. I only figured out a few weeks ago that the reason why all of my projects were like popping and crackling while I was like still in the DAW was because I wasn't using an audio interface. So I only started using that. 100% of my burnout has come from solely my computer is not beefy enough to like handle the things that I'm trying to do on it. It's like I'll hit play and it'll wait 3 seconds and then it'll go past the thing and it'll like, oh, stop. It'll just keep playing for like another 15 seconds. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
My project takes 5 minutes to load. My application takes 6 minutes to start up. If there's anything that burns me out, it's 100% that. If all of those issues were outside of my purview, I could just work for hours. And then I could answer your question honestly about whether it burns me out. But no, right now the projects don't burn me out. It's like
the tech.
My tools are burning me out. It's so frustrating.
No, I definitely can relate. Like I bought a computer. I got like an actual good laptop. Last year, and like prior to that, it was just so many headaches. Like having to do online school on a computer that just doesn't want to work.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because then like now I'm like I open Google and like, oh my gosh, it pops up in a millisecond.
Right? It's something as simple as opening Google.
Or it's like turning your computer on. Doesn't take half an hour anymore.
Oh my god. Literally.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because I sit down, I have a whole weekend to myself. I'm like, okay, this is the weekend where I'm going to I'm going to, stop blaming my tools. I'm going to refine my craft. I'm really just going to work. And I click on Digital Performer and I have to wait like 6 minutes. I go downstairs and I make tea. I finish the whole pot before I come back and my program has loaded. It's so frustrating.
So I guess if we could give any advice to people who are wanting to get into music production, what are the most important things that you should invest in first?
Okay. So our professor, Aaron Sang, vast be his wisdom. This is the advice that he gave to me.
Okay.
And I will repeat it with several grains of salt. Please take this with a grain of salt. You can do professional level editing, creation, mock-up using just beginner tools. You can do it. It's possible. If you want your mixes to sound industry standard, if you want to be moving up to like higher and higher levels, you will soon realize there are a lot of barriers in place. The first barrier that I came across was computer power. I was trying to run everything off of my school laptop, and it's the only laptop I have, right? So it has all of my files on it, it has all my programs, and they don't take up a lot of space, but it's an old laptop too, so the computer power is not great. And on top of all of that, I'm trying to run Digital Performer, which is bulky. I'm trying to load like all of my VSTs, even if they're free, everything, all the plugins, trying to run like even just like
it's like
5
multiple
tracks
things
with
at
reverb on two. It's like my computer does not have enough processing power. So you are able to do everything off of beginner tools. But don't be afraid to recognize and acknowledge when the tools aren't right for the job. A good workman doesn't blame the tools, but a good workman also knows that You don't
the limits of your
you don't use pliers to hammer a nail. Yeah. The obstacles, once they start appearing fast.
Yeah, and I think it's also a thing of knowing what to upgrade first, right?
Yes.
Like let's say I had a crappy mic and a crappy computer, what would you upgrade first? It depends on what you're doing, I guess, right? Like if you're recording vocals all the time and everything sounds, I don't know, like
artifacts everywhere.
Yeah, then maybe upgrade the mic. If you're doing more like electronic music and beat making, then you might want to upgrade the computer first, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, like with audio interface, that's like really, really important. If you're,
oh my god,
like you can get a lot done with no interface.
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you're
to
not
take 4 Advils a day for the headaches.
no, but like if you're like, let's say if you're recording a podcast, let's say, and it's just one track,
exactly,
then you can get by. We're not using an audio interface right now. If you're recording 20 tracks all playing at the same time,
you're gonna hear a lot of
yeah. I remember when I had my old computer, I would be working on my project, and it would get to a certain point where if I wanted to edit something, I would have to edit it and then export it to be able to listen to it back, and then make the change, export it again, because it was just like the computer just couldn't handle playing it back. But it would take at least 10 minutes to export.
That was my entire life for like the past year and a half. But every time that thought came into my head, I was like, that's so much work. I'll just like trust that the automation that I wrote and everything is fine, and it will be fine when I export it. Hopefully, I'm begging, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what else can we give for advice? Like things that on a budget, every year, like if you were to buy a laptop or like, especially with laptops, every year they get better and better. So you can get something that's really, really high end for a very decent price. And, you know, if I were to buy a laptop now versus 5 years ago, like the laptop I could buy now at the same price would have so much more specs than something 5 years ago, which is cool. Yeah,
that is a fair point. It's that technology like really does develop fast nowadays, but also the advancements that are being made they're getting more and more like fine details. So if you don't feel the urge to buy something like brand new if you can't afford it. At the same time, prefer stuff that is newer as opposed to stuff that is older. So if you have a budget of like $1,000 and you could spend that on a 5-year-old Mac, or you know some 5-year-old computer that is, you know, it's decent, it's in working shape, it'll get the job done, but it only costs like $500, as opposed to spending $800 and getting a computer from 6 months ago. I would recommend getting the computer from 6 months ago, because the difference between like 5 years and 6 months.
Yeah.
I've set up this metaphor wrong. If you have 2 computers, okay, start over. If you have 2 computers, one is brand new right now, today, and one is from 6 months ago. Go for the one from 6 months ago. Don't buy the one from brand new today, because that one's going to be more expensive, and the benefits that you're getting from the brand new computer probably aren't worth it, because in 2 or 3 years, it's going to be as obsolete as the computer that you're buying from like 6 months ago.
But if you do have the option from the one 5 years ago, also go with the one from 6 months ago.
Yeah. Buy very recent. Buy as recent as you can, but still like behind the shock wave, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I keep on hearing from people to like always look at. There's Facebook groups for people who know a lot about gear.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they'll sell used items all the time. And So on the topic of technology, you also make YouTube videos and you shoot films.
I do.
And you score for the films.
Occasionally, yes.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because on your YouTube channel, I noticed how in a lot of times when you put up something that you've composed and it's accompanied by a video, the video is so intertwined and synced, integrated into the composition. Just like all of the small details, like you'll make movements with your head, or like there's a shot change, and it just reflects the music so much. And so I wanted to know, like, when you're writing music, do you think about how you're gonna film a video for it, or do you film a video first? And just like how do you do that? How do you approach it?
So, full disclosure, I haven't done it in a while. I've been meaning to get back on it, but like school has been just like filling my entire schedule, and then on top of that, there's drum corps. But when I do it next, the way that I'll look at it, I usually have an idea for a film first, and then the music will be, because the music for film is always accompanying. Unless you are like looking at music and you want to make a film to that. The music will always be accompanying the film. So I'll think about the film first. I'll think about important moments, the story, the structure. And I'll think about like visual details. And then once I have like all of that down and I've started shooting and everything, then I will like start taking the music and trying to represent what I'm seeing visually in the music.
Mm-hmm. So you like will fully make and edit a video and then set it?
It's sort of like songwriting. Remember, so it's the whole discussion of like what comes first, music or lyrics.
Yeah.
It's the two sort of grow organically together. But in my case, I usually start with the film first, and then once I have sort of solid footing on that, then the two can grow together. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Cool. And so do you have to sort of flip back and forth between video editing software and your DAW?
So I will always, this is actually a bit of an issue, because normally when I'm scoring for film, I already have a completed video that I am scoring to. When I'm making a film, the film isn't complete. Like it's still being created, and so is the music. So I'll say, I'll have a moment, say, in the music where I'm like, oh, I need 4 more bars to develop this idea. How can I get 3 more seconds out of the music, or out of the movie? Or this shot is a little bit too long, so I need to chop that down. But that really screws with my BPM. So it's you just gotta. It's just organic, Mm-hmm. Just trust the process, dude. You'll be fine. But literally, no. You just, as long as you trust your instincts. That's all. If there's any piece of advice that I can give that has seriously helped me more than any other piece of advice, it's trust your instincts. Mm-hmm. If you're listening to music, it doesn't matter what kind of music. If you're listening to any kind of music, if you have any kind of thoughts about what it is that you're doing. Yeah. Understanding that's an extremely broad statement, but yes, that is exactly how broad it needs to be.
It's like music is the universal language, right? And so if you're studying music, you can learn so much about it, but you could also, there's a lot of things that we intuitively know and feel when we listen to music.
I think the thing, because whenever someone says music is the universal language, it like rubs me kind of the wrong way. Just
Sorry.
No. But like I'm guilty of saying it too. But like, I've never really quite found how to articulate just exactly what that sentiment is. But I think the best way that I know how is that it's not that music is the universal language. The universal language is the emotions that we feel, and the music is simply the medium through which we express it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And so, I guess going off of what you were saying about instinct, because another thing I noticed in your videos, and just like in general, knowing you in person, you are a very charismatic person, and you are very good with people.
Thank you.
And I think that also comes across in your videos, where it's like you use sort of humor and I guess I don't want to say randomness, but like you have a lot of more candid type shots in your
Yeah.
videos. And it sort of plays into the humor of it. And so something I wanted to ask was, you know, like people say like, oh, be yourself. Be authentic to yourself. But I don't know, it's like a lot easier said than done, and I think like you definitely need to have a certain level of confidence to do that. And so like in terms of like, you know, how you portray yourself online and how you express yourself through music, do you have any thoughts about any of that?
So I feel that like charisma, the personability, that sort of like comes very naturally for me. So as long as I'm like leaning into that, then it's not really something that I struggle with. So unfortunately, I can't give a lot of tips other than people, they either don't care about what it is that you're doing, they care deeply about what it is that you're doing. You know, if you can figure out how to tell when people are doing one or the other, then that's, you know, that's certainly a great step in the right direction.
Hi.
Oh.
Are you interrupting?
You're recording something.
Thank you.
No worries.
No
No.
worries.
Yeah, no worries at all.
Have fun.
Yeah. Be yourself. Just be yourself. I always, for the longest time, I hated that advice because it's a cop-out. It's not advice. Like, I felt like it was not advice because it's like, who the fuck else am I supposed to? Oh, sorry. Who else am I supposed to be? Like, but what it is trust your instincts, trust your ear, trust your training.
Trust what you want.
Yeah.
And what you want to do.
Yeah. So everything, and this goes into sort of like a sort of guiding principle for me, but everything must have an intention. If you're like very clearly intentional about what it is that you're doing, then you know that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So like, even if you're just,
I feel like that's like a really difficult thing to do, because, and it takes a lot of confidence to do, because if you're doing, like, let's say you're writing music and you're doing everything with intention, that means that if someone doesn't like it or someone has any sort of critique, they're not only critiquing what you did, they're critiquing your reasoning for what you did. And so you have to have like the confidence to either be like, no, like I did this for this reason and here's why, or to be like, I did this for this reason, but now that I've received this constructive criticism, I can, reevaluate and grow from that. But that takes a lot of humility.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. There's sort of two interesting like side paths that you brought up there. One of which I'm going to go down really quick is like the pedagogical implications, if that makes sense. So when you're teaching, you never want to say, oh, you made a bad sound, or you sounded really good today. Like neither negative or the positive, but you're attributing it to the person. You always want to separate the person from their playing so that their value, like their self-value, is not determined on like how well they're playing. It's still like their personal value. And instead you can look objectively at how they're playing. So you'll say, oh, your tone was really good. Oh, I liked how you sounded when you played this. I didn't like the sound you made when you did this. It's not, I don't like your sound here.
It's like, I don't like how you sounded.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I versus I don't like how it sounded when you did this.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's so hard to like find, the right wording for those things, but it's so important. So likewise, going back to the intentions, when someone is giving you criticisms or you're talking about your piece to others, it's important to distance yourself from the work in such a way that you can talk about the work and not get personally offended, because that is hard, because that is your work, that is your art that you're putting out there. And people are like, I think, it's a little bit too long at the beginning. I think you're too long at the beginning. You know what? How about that? So it's important to say like, oh, okay, here's my intention for doing this. So instead of attacking the person, you're attacking the intention.
Yeah.
You can sort of like logic it down. Vast oversimplification, but that's how that works. There was another thing that I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember what you wanted to talk about either. I'm just joking.
Oh God, one of us didn't know. We were talking about intentions behind the piece and someone giving you criticism.
Confidence. Intention.
Yes. Okay, so vast oversimplification again here, but the intention does not have to be a quote-unquote good reason. The intention has to be present. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is what people really mean when they're like, trust yourself, trust the intentions. The intention can be, oh, well, you know, a 2 chord has 2, 4, and 6 in it, but, you know, I want it diminished, so I'm going to add this, and I want 7, so it's this. And that works well because harmony, and, you know, if you don't like that, then take it up with Bach and take it up with Beethoven. But that's my intention for using this chord here. Or your intention could be, yeah, that sounds good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that way, I like that. I don't know, no, do it that way. Those are both very equally valid intentions. And I think it's a big step in maturity to realize that both of those are valid. Because especially in a university setting, like you sit around and everyone's like, oh, 2-5-1 this, and you know,
like no
the
parallel fifths,
and no parallel fifths, and then you look at like Debussy or you know, and any of the Impressionists, and they're using parallel everything. You're like, well, but that breaks the rules. So the intention is wrong. You're wrong. It's like no, it's something else going on. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing I'm just not comment. But like going back to the point at hand, the confidence should stem from trusting your intentions and knowing that as long as there exists an intention, even if it is, I just like the sound of it, that is valid, that is fair. People can attack that, fine, whatever, but it's intention.
Yeah, and I think also on the same vein, having a goal or like, I don't think you necessarily always have to have a goal of what you're aiming towards, but that could help guide your intentions, where it's like, I want to do this because at the end of the road I want the piece to sound like X, Y, and Z, and so this is supporting that, or this is my narrative, and so I'm choosing this chord because it supports this narrative that I'm painting.
Yeah. It's like there's a thought idea. No, what's it called when you
philosophy?
Thought experiment.
Oh.
A thought experiment called the Library of Babel. So if you give a chimpanzee a typewriter and a time machine that allows them to travel an infinite amount of time, they will eventually, and they're just like randomly pushing buttons, they will type out every single possible combination of letters, numbers, whatever you have it, every single thing that could ever possibly exist. And within that library would exist every single work of written word that has ever existed, exists now, will ever exist. But the difference between simply doing that and saying, okay, now I'm going to excerpt this book, and this is the book that was written by a chimpanzee, you know, by complete chance. The thing that separates that from if I did the same thing, but it was me who created it. It wasn't just a chimpanzee typing buttons by chance. The thing that separates that from my work is that I was intentional about doing it. That is where, in my opinion, the art resides. Simply the presence of intentions, no matter what they are. So if someone tells you to be yourself, to trust yourself, that is what they're doing. That is what they're trying to foster within you, is the attention to intention.
Ooh, that's
a sound bite right there.
Yeah, that is quotable.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Duncan's inspirational quotes.
Attention to intention.
Yeah. I feel the same way about something that would really bug me was because I was a very shy kid, very insecure.
Really?
I was so shy. Oh, are you being sarcastic?
No, just a little bit. from knowing you in class and whatnot. But.
Yeah. But people would always, like teachers and people of authority would tell me to be confident. And
it's so simple. Just stop being anxious. Just be confident. Just do it.
And that bugged me so much because me just like existing and doing what I was doing normally was already me really trying to be confident, you know? And it's such like a generalized blanket statement to say, you know, whereas it's like trust yourself is actually useful. Because it's like, how do you be confident? You trust yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
That's confidence. Confidence is trust in the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
Trust. It's like confidence is knowledge. Knowledge is confidence, and that like you know something to be true. Like when you're practicing for a big exam or something, it's like I know I have this part down, so I'm not going to be nervous when I go on stage because I'm confident because I know that I have this part down.
Or it's even like something I always say to students or just friends: trust in your preparation, and that it will be enough.
Exactly.
Or that trust in your preparation that you'll be able to do the best you can with how you prepared. You know.
Because even one thing for me in like my past performance experience is like I won't put in a lot of effort, and I know that that's not the best that I could do, like period. But in that moment, with the preparation that I have, that is the best that I can present at this point in time.
Yeah, it's like that thing of you may only have 70% capacity on a certain day. It's not giving 100% of your best day. It's giving 100% of the 70%.
It's your output will not be 100% every day, but your input should always be 100%. Not 90 or 110, because 110 is just as bad as 90. But 100% input every day. And if that means that you're on a 70% day, then your output will be 70%. If that means you're on a 95% day, then your output will be 90%. If that means you're on a 5% day, then that's 5% output, but your input is still 100%. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You're just dropping all the wisdom today.
They're all just like things that have been dropped on me, so I figure it's, only proper that I pass them on as well.
Just sharing the wealth.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of touched upon this very in depth, but the question that I'm asking everyone is, when you were beginning your journey as an artist, what is a resource and or piece of advice that you wish you had?
I guess for me, when I was first starting out doing artistic stuff, I mean, I could say the usual things of like, less is more. That's always important anywhere you are. Less is more. Always be intentional. Trust yourself, trust your intentions. I think for me, when I was first starting out, I was still battling between the duality of like, I'm following this path of becoming a musician, but I still like have an extreme deep passion for sciences and engineering, because it was literally like turning a leaf that I made that decision. But I think the advice that I would give is like, just go for it. Doing one thing does not separate you out from the ability to do the other thing, and of course it won't be the same. You can still you can do both. So
I just talked to Shreya, who pursued music and science at the same time, and so it's like definitely possible to do both.
It is possible.
Being able to pursue the things that are passionate and not have to quote unquote give one up, it just gives it makes your life so much more colorful when you're able to do all of the things you want to do.
That is, I honestly, if there's one thing that I am truly like just deeply grateful for and proud of, that's part of my identity, is that I have been gracious? No. I've been lucky enough to have a great wealth of experiences to draw from. So I've traveled the world a little bit. I've learned some languages. You know, I come from a mixed background, so I have, you know, multiple cultures to draw from. I try to understand people at their level, so I learn about cultures a lot. I learn about, you know, I'm deeply interested in sciences. Every single thing that you know is a node in your brain. And the more things that you know, the more interconnected your web can be. Mm-hmm. So if you know, if you just like know more things, if you understand more realities than your own, then that helps you to relate to other people, and that helps you to create something that is more unified and something that is, you know, trending towards, if that is what you're looking for, something that is, you know, universal, something that is globally true.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to follow those, like, kind of a paler, more surface question to follow.
Yeah.
What music would you recommend that people listen to? Like anything that you'd like to share? Music recommendation.
Oh God. Okay. Okay, so I listen to all kinds of music. I am notoriously infamous for not listening to classical music, even though I'm a classical composer. But I listen to film music. I like minimalist funk. I am Wolfpack's biggest fan. Jack Stratton, if you're hearing this, I love you forever.
Jack Stratton, you should be on my podcast.
Yeah. If you can get that you've made it big.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's listening, then...
Yeah. Just contact, email me.
Yeah.
No, but I think honestly, because I don't think members of your podcast, listeners of your podcast, probably listen to this, or they will probably get recommended to them by anyone else. Listen to drum corps. Listen to marching bands, because it's so strange. It's such a niche world, but it is so rich once you're inside, and it's so like deep and broad. And the worst part about all of it is it's dying.
No.
It's eventually, like within like probably the next 10 years, it might not exist.
Wow.
One of the legacy corps that's existed since the founding of drum corps went bankrupt this year, and
it's
they're
like
not
Girl Guides of Canada.
What, sir?
The Girl Guides of Canada that are going bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like something that's been like historic, and then it's dying.
Yeah.
Now.
No. Where am I going to get my Girl Scout cookies? No. So I will bring them out of bankruptcy solely for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the other good that they
like
do
have a bunch of daughters and just
Yeah. No, but
sell the cookies.
Listen to drum corps, support drum corps. It is a dying art form, and it's so sad that it is suffering the way that it is, because I feel it is truly on the verge of becoming something that is just really, really, really phenomenal. Like the amount of breakthroughs that we're going through, we're still discovering new things. We're still discovering new ways of teaching, new ways of doing it. And honestly, everyone who marches drum corps, most people, there are exceptions, but everyone that I've met who've marched drum corps, they've turned into just wonderful human beings. Oh. They're pinnacles of society.
It's that discipline as well that instilled.
Really?
Right?
No, the whole point of drum corps is the people that you march with. You march corps to be around those kinds of people, to ignore the rest of the world for 3 months.
Aww.
And it's why I keep going back, because it's like family.
My very limited exposure to drum corps has been through the movie Drumline.
Oh yeah, so that's college marching band. So college marching band, as far as I'm concerned, is here to stay forever.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
But
at least we have that.
Yeah, and drum corps itself as its own marching arts for marching sake, it is going away, unfortunately. And whatever I can do to stop that, I swear to God, I will try to figure out a way. But
so we'll put links in
Yeah.
links in the description. So if anyone
if you know,
is listening and wants to be in
Yeah.
drum corps,
if you see
You know?
anyone posting on their story saying, "Hey, I'm trying to march this season at cadets, at mandarins, at anywhere, Cavaliers," like please donate so I can help support my son. Or if you have a rich grandparent who's just passed away and they have like
or
$40 million
could be living and
or
just
yeah.
rich.
I'm sorry. I was just if you've inherited a large amount of money, donating it to the world of drum corps, that would be perhaps fortuitous, but yeah.
So before we finish off, do you have any upcoming music or projects that you would like to plug?
Projects. Not at the moment, mainly because
Drum corps.
exactly. Yeah, we're learning.
But we'll put your
over the
link,
summer. But
links to
Yeah.
social media and
you can
YouTube.
follow me on Instagram, He Shoots, He Scores Studios. You can go to my website, duncanhall.ca. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is also He Shoots, He Scores Studios. I can give you all of these links as well.
Yeah.
Link in the bio. Hit like, subscribe, ring that bell icon.
Oh,
follow
yeah.
me on Spotify. No. I might have. I've been talking with a local spoken word rap beat maker personality. She was at the train station at my house, just selling like freezies, slushies, and like Kool-Aid to try and support her journey to music school.
Oh.
Because she wants to go to school. So she was like selling things. I was like, hey, I go to music school. Why don't we do a collaboration? This is turning into like a bigger project as well, because we've been talking before. She's like, oh yeah, why don't I get my buddy from the States to feature on this? I'm like, oh, okay, oh my god, this gets serious.
That's exciting.
So I might have that project coming up. But other than that, the most important thing is that I will be available for work soon, because I'm graduating next year. So if you're listening to this podcast and you need someone to design drill for your marching band, to arrange for your marching band, to score your film, to edit your film, I can do that too. I can speak a little bit of Mandarin, if that's at all useful. Yeah, I'm cheap. I am fairly quick.
You're skilled and talented.
Skilled and talented, and I'm hungry for work.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for creating a podcast so that I can be again.
Yes.
Thank you for having such a wonderful one. This was a wonderful time.
Yeah. This is really fun.
Yeah. Next season when you have video, I'll have to,
Yeah.
I'll have to poke you a little bit.
You can edit the videos.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Networking.
I see what's going on here.
Yeah. But yeah, anyone who is listening, thank you for listening. Don't forget to add this podcast to your playlists and to like it and follow it, and to follow the podcast on social media at the Bedroom Studios Podcast. And all the links will be in the description. We will put drum corps music on the playlist of guest music recommendations, so you can listen to that too.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.